I have three world-class B2B marketers here today that's going to share their perspective and experiences. And I'd like to start to introduce the gentleman, Jim Donovan. He was with Teradata for 20-plus years, recently head up all of their global industry marketing. I think there was about 18 industries represented, whether it's utilities, FinServ, Gov. And to his left is Michael Foley. Michael Foley is from EMC. And Michael's group at EMC is leading the charge with building some profound data science labs, marketing data science labs. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
And Joseph Pataseri, or otherwise known as JP, is from Cisco. He heads up all of the go-to-market activities on behalf of Cisco and all the demand generation. So obviously he sees a lot when it comes to creating effective and efficient means engaging with consumers and driving revenue. So when we think about a data-driven economy in the bigger picture, it's pretty profound because, in fact, there is a lot of socioeconomic changes that occur each and every day because of data. Whether it's producing innovative products that could save babies' lives on one end of the spectrum, to candidly social media activities where there are coups in certain countries. And it is happening at a rate, I'm sure we all know, is pretty dramatic. The consumers, the customers, the businesses are all participating. We are all participating in this. And the volume and in the variety of data that's being produced every day provides unbelievable opportunity, innovation, and in some cases, some uncertainty. And if you think about us as marketers, we're responsible for part of this. We're actually taking our dollars and throwing out some stimuli out into the marketplace where we're engaging with customers directly and consumers that then, of course, creates more data, in that case, more unstructured data. And if you think about the opportunity we have as marketers, where we are now understanding the behavior and the intent and monitoring that using big data and analytics, it's almost like marketing is the new sales. And it provides us a great opportunity to put ourselves in a strategic position where these three gentlemen have been to date. So we witnessed some of those applications with Beth Comstock when she talked about the R&D all the way through the consumer engagement. And so I'd like to first sort of level set at the baseline the notion of big data, because I think it's often used, but in a lot of cases, I believe it's often misunderstood. So Jim, if you could just level set what is big data, because it's used each and every day, and it kind of, in some cases, creates a lot of confusion for people, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the big data, I'd like to get into Jeff's shoes. And if you notice, Jeff's wearing some white Bucks, and somebody told me if Jeff is on stage, he wears white Bucks, and I didn't believe it, but here's the truth. And Jeff informed me that he only wears them between Memorial Day and Labor Day, so.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
It's very appropriate with his fashion. So.
He sent me a text on Thursday and said, "Are you wearing your white Bucks? I'll bet you." And I said, "I'll take that bet. It's after Memorial Day. All bets are off." So here we are.
All right, so tweet about Jeff's shoes. But yeah, let's get into big data, definition of big data, and it's a bit ambiguous, and it has evolved over sort of the period of the last couple of years. And the simple way was the 4 V's: volume, variety, velocity, and variability. And that's, coined by Gartner. And then today I thought, why don't I go to the real source, which is Wikipedia, and that's where everybody seems to go. So why don't I just read the official definition of big data. And big data is a blanket term for any collection of data sets so large and complex that becomes difficult to process using on-hand database management tools or traditional data processing applications. So what does that really mean? Well, you as marketers, if you went to your IT and said, "Tell me about big data. What is this big data thing?" What they would talk about is new data types, the unstructured data. So this is data that doesn't fit simply into a data model or have a predefined organization structure to it. So that's what it really means, is these new data types. An example is weblog data. Everybody here wants to know, what are their customers, prospects, what's the market doing out there on the web? And you get this weblog data, and you need to make sense of it. It's unstructured. And then what they'll talk about is really new techniques of analyzing this data. You'll hear words like MapReduce and technologies like Hadoop, and it's really just talking about how you actually address and start to make sense of the data. But what I'm also finding is really in business today, this big data definition is a category that really is encompassing everything that has to do with data and analytics. And I think that's really more the definition that's emerging. And as we said, that word, big data, the big's probably going to go away, and we're just going to be talking about data.
Thank you. Yeah, so it sounds like the higher you go up in the C-suite, the simpler they make it. More in technology, the more complex it becomes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So you obviously have been at a company that has provided solutions and technologies right around big data and helping organizations across 18 sort of industries. What have you discovered about the usage of big data on behalf of your clients now that's different than, let's say, for example, 10 years ago when it wasn't so sexy and cool?
Yeah.
Is there any differences?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we're a marketer or seller of big data technologies. At the same time, we use the technology to help us do a better job of selling and marketing. And I think back 10 years ago, and what's the difference today? It's probably easier to say what's the same, but there's a lot of things that's different, and I think it starts with the customers, the buyers. The buyers are different. Who's buying, how they're buying, how they get information, and how they're influenced in a buying process has changed dramatically. The data, this is all about data. The data has changed. It used to be about transaction data. We had transaction data, now it's about interaction data. It's really about looking at behaviors, and that's sort of the digital, footprint of the buyer. The technology has shifted dramatically. All the technologies that we sell collectively here have progressed a lot in that period of time. And I look around the room at the sponsors, and some of these companies did not even exist 10 years ago. So the tools we have has shifted dramatically. And what's that all mean to us as marketers? It means that we are more necessary, more important, and more consequential to the goals of our businesses, to sell product to the customers. And I think that's really what it ultimately means.
Thank you. So JP, obviously you go to market globally on behalf of Cisco, and you see the customer and the customer's customer, all the way from the consumer stream to the B2B side. What do you believe, or what do you see as certain industries that are embracing the notion of application of big data more so than others? Are there leaders or laggards?
Yeah, so I think that data's been used by companies forever. It's not a whole new concept, but as you think about massively scalable data, the way that we're talking about in big data, it's been primarily in software companies, web companies, e-commerce, finance, retail, where you've got a lot of data points where you're trying to correlate and make decisions quickly. It's obvious that you need a big data environment to do that. But the second piece of this is when you're dealing with data real time, and you need to make real-time decisions on things like pricing and risk management. We were talking about that earlier today. You've got to have availability of that data very, very quickly. So we're seeing it a lot in web, e-commerce, and software companies. We're seeing it in retail. We're seeing it in finance. I think over time, big data will be all data, and ultimately it'll get to everything. If you think about where the Internet of Things and what we call the Internet of Everything is going, you're going to get data from sensors, you're going to get data from wearables, you're going to get data from devices, a whole new class of devices that are delivering data. And so when you're starting to correlate all of that, we see a lot, for example, in the oil and gas industry, where you have millions and millions of sensors that are telling you exactly what's going on. You've got to be able to correlate that quickly.
So in a way, if you're a marketer or even a vendor trying to sell into one of these organizations and these industries are more advanced, their expectations of the supply chain should most likely be the same. So is there a certain archetype or persona of a CEO at one of those industries that defines them as a leader perhaps than other CEOs that may be laggards? Or is there any sort of common characteristics or understanding or not?
You know, the thing about data is that it's really important to get it to the business in a way that the use case is obvious. And the CEOs who understand how it can change their business trajectory and transform their processes typically, and are a little more analytical about that, typically will move towards data. There's this translation layer required, because unfortunately, and Mike and I have talked about this over several years, you know, the data scientists get locked up behind a glass room to go and do their big data thing, and until it crosses the chasm to the business in the use cases that are going to drive revenue or improve customer satisfaction or change shareholder value, you're not going to see that transition take place. So it's the visionary CEO that takes the data scientists out of the glass room, gets a translation layer to the business, and then, you know, actually utilizes it.
So Mike, we're lucky to get you out of the glass room.
I actually work in a glass room. That's true. Believe it or not, you've been there.
So let's talk about this glass room. So EMC is eating its own dog food. It's literally using its own technology to advance its own marketing science lab. I find that profound. I'm not sure if everyone has a marketing science lab, but perhaps you could just let us understand, what is the scope of your marketing science lab?
I have to think about it. I'm a very slow thinker, so my responses have a little delay. Well, there was a new group that came in for marketing. Jeremy Burton, who was CMO at the time, now president, Jonathan Martin, a group in the Valley, and they were all very data-driven. This was their idea. They came into EMC, and EMC was, as you would expect, a typical marketing, sales-driven marketing company, very rudimentary in a way, a couple years ago. So their idea was to form this marketing science lab. Now, we happen to work and sell EMC, big data gear at EMC. So one of the kind of the night job is we are working on our own equipment to improve the effectiveness of EMC marketing. And by the way, we talk to a lot of customers about how we're doing it at EMC, so we're drinking our own champagne. We talk to them, and they all have the similar careabouts. And then we learn from them and share back with them what we've learned about data quality and so forth as we improve our marketing.
So it took a few individuals that were inspired to sort of move the ball forward. What inspires you when you're working at the lab? Well,
for one thing, we have absolutely the best technology. So if you're a gearhead, for us, it's just fantastic. We're in an executive briefing center, so we work with sales directly and with customers, so we get to talk to people that have the similar problems all day. So for us, that's very motivating, very educational. You know, we get to share best practices and learn from them as well. I think those are the two.
Okay, so what's the output of the marketing science lab? Give me a couple of work streams that you believe that are advancing the efficiency and effectiveness of sales and marketing in this lab.
Yeah, well, as you would expect, it's very measurable. Big data for us is not black box, it's not like a big ocean. There are blocks to it. One is the gear that we put out, the EMC technology, just like GE, who's a heavy investor in Pivotal Labs, which is part of EMC, or just like Audi that comes through with their car and their diagnostics. The products we put out throw off a lot of information. Our marketing, our social marketing throws off a lot of information. We take that information, put it into what's called a big data lake, which is the new big data repository, and technology now has changed with Hadoop and so forth that allows you to process that information very quickly. And then on top of that, because there is so much information, we're applying machine learning techniques. And machine learning is a form of artificial intelligence, but it allows us to take all that information, synthesize it, and come up with very precise targeting, for example, for demand gen campaigns globally, to optimize our media across the board with our ad agency and with social media, and some of the new social media technology that's coming out as we speak that allows us to target with our internal models, target our media, and it allows us to get feedback for ROI reporting and so forth.
I would encourage anybody to, at some point, look on YouTube and just Google up EMC's Marketing Science Lab. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you still have this, but I recall, you know, there's like a globe that's spinning around and things are popping up, letting salespeople, I think, know that there's an opportunity that's ripe, and his or her name is blah, 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 located, and they can activate it
Yeah,
quickly.
that's actually a good point. And one thing we did, and there's been a lot of discussion about the role of sales and marketing in a B2B, and this is a heavy sales-driven company.
Yes.
But when I landed, the first thing I did was go over to sales, and we jointly built this, the sales and analytics sandbox. And they hired a couple of data scientists too. We share data, work on the models, share models, which is the new big thing, is collaboration across the board. And everyone can work in the same sandbox, build the same models. So we have a unified joint go-to-market with sales and marketing against, like you say, that globe.
Yes.
And we'll share the information and then share the marketing initiative.
Excellent. So was this a skunkworks effort, or was it funded? How did this come about? And how can the marketers here understand literally the baby step necessary, because obviously they're not EMC. But what is necessary, the first step, you think?
Well, fortunately for us, it wasn't a skunkworks.
Yeah.
As I say, that Jeremy Burton, who's now the CEO, it was his idea and Jonathan's and Todd Forsyth's idea to set this room was just empty in the EBC. It was empty like a big warehouse. And he thought, well, rather than putting VNXs and a bunch of gear in like traditionally we would do, let's put people in there, and then our customers can come in and see them work, you know, on our gear. So it was their idea. They saw the opportunity, and from what I've read in the literature, like Davenport and Harris, Eric Siegel, your own Bill Franks, who's a thought leader over Teradata, you have to have top-down support. For a stage 5 analytic competitor, they have to be supported by senior management.
Okay.
And that makes it pervasive throughout an organization.
So it's a little bit easier for you to get the asks.
Yeah, they push the way. They force people to be more quantitative marketers. They push out education, a lot of things that have to go before us.
Hey, Jeff, can I just add one thing? Because I visited the lab last week. Thanks, Mike, for letting me do that. And when I saw it, the thought was everybody is going to have one of these. Everybody's going to have a marketing sciences department. You have to. I mean, that's going to be the way that you go to market in the future. You need that information. You need that insight. And so I was asking Mike about his background, and he made a funny comment, which was, he doesn't always get invited to the marketing parties. and so my thought was, in the future, you're going to be not only inviting Mike to the marketing parties, but he's going to be the guy, standing on the table at the center of the whole thing, really the hero. And I think this is the future, is this kind of capability.
And you could see it now.
Yeah.
You could see it now. So there may be some level of maturity in the audience, I don't know what the range is, about data-driven. Here's one example. And I guess if you guys could just provide one word that you think describes the value that you deliver to your organization, assuming you're data-driven, what would be the one word that would come to mind insofar as the inside out, the value from the inside out?
Yeah, so I would say it's revenue.
Revenue.
I would agree with that.
Revenue. 2 for 3. And the poll? No.
Well, being the mechanic in the group, I'd say precision.
Precision.
Yeah.
And then what about the one word you would use to describe the value to the customer or the customer's customer? Because really, when you think about it, you're trying to provide innovation for your customers so they can actually have better benefits for the society in a data-driven economy. What would be the one word that you think they would use?
Be relevance.
Relevance?
Yeah, I would agree it's relevance.
Relevance.
Yeah.
2 for 3.
Well, I would too, but I'll add on insight.
Insight. Excellent. Thank you. There was a study that just recently came out from Effective Brands in the 4As, and it was in March. And we're going to ask you guys to get involved with a question or two in a minute. But what was interesting about the study is that it had asked both clients and agencies some very basic, simple questions that I thought the outcome was pretty profound enough to insert it in today's conversation. And remember that the answers are coming from both an executive that runs an agency as well as those that are senior leaders. The question was, what are the top 3 trends that you believe will impact the future role of agencies? What are the top 3 trends that you believe will impact the future role of agencies? So now you can see both sides coming together. So I run an agency, and what do I believe? And then people who hire agencies, what do you believe? What was interesting, undeniably, number 1, was increased focus on measurement and ROI, both equally for both sides.
Absolutely.
And we just heard about the revenue marketer from Pedowitz's group, so this underscores it. And if you think about marketing, they're in the enviable position of capturing all this information because the pipes are bigger and the data is there to actually start to come up with some empirical evidence. This is like a good celebratory moment for us, and I'm sure it can only get better. So what we would like to do is ask you to participate in a question or two, and if you could just advance the slide, I'd appreciate it. And if not, I'll go get the clicker myself. I'm getting the clicker myself. I'll stand up for this anyway. There we go. These are the three questions we're going to ask of you, and of course, they're going to be done on your live cube sequentially in order. So this gives you some context of why we're asking the questions in the order that they're at. So if you do not mind serving up the first question to the audience, I would appreciate it. So in addition to marketing leaders, being us, measuring marketing ROI is a high priority for, pick one. Clearly the C-suite's winning, and the C-suite has won. Interesting though, we talk about ROI and sales integration, sales alignment with marketing. I'm surprised sales is probably so low, but guys, point of view on what you're hearing here or seeing here? Is this similar to what you're experiencing, or?
Yeah, I think so, and I think the sales one will be growing rapidly. As sales starts to understand more the value and they start to recognize that more, they're going to be the biggest champion of this.
Yeah, I fully expected that sales would be higher in this conversation. Maybe it's just a little early, but not only the ROI, but the growth and where potential new revenue streams are going to come from is a conversation that we have to have with sales.
Okay. Like, point of view?
Agreed. I think even from the foundational level, as you have integrated sales and marketing go-to-market, it really becomes hard to deconstruct the two. And so you're looking at a joint ROI from both.
That's a good point, because if you think about it, especially in B2B, I would say 20 years ago it was not uncommon to have a title called VP of Sales and Marketing.
Right.
Right.
That was not uncommon.
Yep.
And by the way, it was not VP of Marketing and Sales. It was always sales and marketing. And I think when the two groups separated, let's say 15 years ago, think of the billions of dollars being spent to try to get them back together.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, here we are trying to get it back together, talking about work streams and technology and data. Yep. So maybe perhaps when the sales was low, there was an assumption that marketing was the verb, i.e. selling, as opposed to sales, the function. Okay, let's serve up the second question, please. The greatest impediment to measuring marketing ROI is I had Jeopardy music for this. Do you, of you guys want to serve up the Jeopardy music on the next one? Just to, there we go. It was supposed to be timed though, but here we are. All right, thank you. So, this doesn't seem like a shocker. Data.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember one time I talked to a CMO about 5 years ago when we dabbled into data analytics, and I said, hey, you know, why don't we start looking at some of your customer information? Oh yeah, it's right here in my marketing database. Oh really? What's in there? All my prospects. No, that's not customers. Where's the customer information?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I think it's in your ERP system. I can't go there.
Yeah.
Finance is going to kill me, whatever. So help me understand if, you know, give 2 or 3 points of what it takes to get the data so marketers can make better decisions. Any insights, JP?
It's leadership, leadership, and leadership. And when our CMO first took on the role, she asked me what we think we needed to be successful in demand generation, and I said, just set a goal, put a number out there, and commit to it. And you'll get access to data, you'll find the data, you'll connect the data, and you'll report the data. It'll happen. But you've got to set the goal from the top down, and it drives behavior. So I think leadership is key.
Sounds like we got to go inside your black box. Oh, your glass box.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
Are you the one housing it all and we have to ask you, or do you still have to ask others?
Well, interestingly enough, I think the idea of a marketing database is an antique. That whole notion, marketing database, sales database. We don't have a database. There's a big data lake for EMC. Manufacturing was there first. Marketing, sales, I said we jointly put our resources against getting what we needed in there. We're talking to our media agency now. The first thing we want to talk to them about is we want full integration with you and your data management platform back and forth for external data, so you can build lookalike models for us to implement our media. So everything is integrated into this lake, and then we are all players on it, and that's the idea. There is no real marketing database per se.
You can drown in that lake?
Yeah, you could.
Pretty deep?
You could.
Okay.
Gets
Jim?
Yeah,
Any suggestions?
well, just to add, I think it's being recognized and by the IT professionals, by senior management, and Teradata puts on a big event every year, and the advisory board for the event is made up of customers, and most of them are senior IT professionals. And when we talked about what should we focus on for the event in the fall of 2014, it was all about how we get more access, more ubiquitous access to the data, because they have spent, as companies, lots of money in building infrastructures and really gathering the data, and they want to put it to use, and they know the tools are there, and they need to start to drive that shift. And it's not the technology that's the limitation. It's more, the mindset, it's the skill set. That's really the
So the data collection's there. It can be housed anywhere, whether it's open or closed.
Right.
Some of it's dark, meaning it's been sitting there for a while but not used.
Yep.
Some of it's fresh and unstructured, and it takes leadership, it sounds like, to say, if we want to achieve this objective, get the data.
Absolutely.
I do recall one time talking to a CFO, asking, what is important to them regarding marketing's impact, and he's like, well, I just want to know, sales productivity, does it increase or decrease? And we're like, great, okay, now you need us to get the data, and it took, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But without that conversation, it would take 2 years. All right, let's serve up the next question. And Jeopardy music aside, here we go. The most important partnership for marketers to have in place for measuring marketing ROI is with... I think we influenced this answer. Interesting.
Yeah.
So the one before that said, in addition to marketing leaders, measuring marketing ROI is a high priority for sales wasn't, and now sales is.
I would agree with that. I think
so.
Yeah, I think that sales is your best friend in helping to get more investment in what you need as marketers to get to the measurement, the ROI measurement. And I think that you'll see the CFO finance one start to increase. It's got to be a collaboration, because you have to start speaking finance language. And I think really it's that triad that's going to have to pull it together.
I think it's important for marketing to be a discipline at the adult table. And what I mean by that is, so often, and I hate to say this because I'd hate to insult the audience, but so many of our conferences in marketing are a therapy session for marketing people wanting to talk to sales, right? It's like, oh gee, I wish if they only understood what we were doing and how much more value we could bring and what data we have. And I think it's time for marketeers to get to the adult table and say, this is a discipline, this is a business imperative, this is the impact we can have on the business, and all of the players need to partner in that, whether it's sales, whether it's finance, whether it's IT.
So step it up.
Yeah.
And bring data. And bring data.
And bring data.
I mean,
exactly.
Finance, it's the language of
Right.
fact and data, and you have to show up with data. And I think that's part of the challenge, is in the early phases of starting to sort of get to these more contemporary marketing models. You're experimenting. You're bringing in new technologies. And you're sort of out there alone spending money, without having the hard facts right there that you can put up. And I think when you go to engage with finance, when you go to engage with sales, you have to have the facts that they care about.
I was just thinking about what you were saying, Jim, and also your observation about discipline, because on the other side of the ROI equation is the expense. And so marketing has to be disciplined as well about not having skunkwork projects, setting up campaigns, accurately, capturing information on the back end that allows you to assign an expense with the bookings. Because a lot of times the data on the back end is, marketing is their own worst violator as far as data quality, because campaign setups are all over the place, or they're executing outside systems that can never feed into what we want to assign to bookings on the other end.
So random acts of marketing that's not
Yeah,
proper.
you know, and you talk to finance people, and those people are very buttoned down. They don't behave like that, you know, and they don't understand that logic. Or sales that has bookings and they have forecasts and they come to the table with commitment, and so we have to be the same way.
Okay, I want to pivot off that comment, because you made a statement that says, come with the facts, right? And facts, you know, well, data never lies, but it doesn't always tell you the truth either. I mean, maybe perhaps the information that's better consumed by the Office of Finance would be financial information,
Yes.
not likes, Facebooks, awareness. It doesn't jive. That's qualitative language.
Right.
And we're not dismissing the fact that those have an important part along the journey. It's just not the language that they're used to.
Right.
So when you say step it up and say, when we're talking about business value, we're talking about money, incremental revenue gain by the investment in marketing. All right, so I'm going to flip to one more slide, if you mind advancing. Oh, do I have the clicker now?
No, there it is. You got
There it is. Okay, you may have seen this, and I think Scott's going to be speaking later on.
every single one of these.
Yeah. So check this out. It's just like one of those Lumascapes. Boom. There's 900 plus marketing technology companies today, probably even more, up from, let's say, 100 from 3 years ago, according to Mr. Brinker. And it's pretty spooky.
Yeah.
And it's broken into four chunks. You got the interaction type technology on the top left, red. Look at that. That means that every little tactical tool is available to do tactical interaction. Top right, marketing operations, the logistics and management of marketing. It looks like the bottom is all around the data management, the data platform. CIOs gotta love seeing this.
Yeah.
Not so much.
So what knowing this is the world
Yeah.
that these marketers are seeing, and they believe truly that maybe one of these answers all of it, what would be the advice that you would give to help marketers understand, A, how to even understand all this and keep up with it, but more importantly, is there a logical adoption to actually acquiring certain technologies along the way? So Jim, 30 seconds.
I would say think big, start small. The underlying data is critical. You can't have a tool without the data that's actually going to give you an accurate insight or output. And I think that's been a mistake in technology in prior years.
Agree. In computer science, there's this idea of data independence. You want the data to be independent of the applications. So think about having the core data, but also don't worry too much about the applications. Think more of as problem solvers, because all these things are just plug and play. You know, we're very tools agnostic. We think more about the problem and put in things as we need to.
JP, 30 seconds.
Think about the most important question that you have to answer for your business and for your discipline in marketing, and work your way back to what data you need to get that done, and then fill in the pieces as you go. Building a full roadmap up front may not answer the question that you're looking for.
Good point. Simple yes, no. There's a lot of discussion earlier about the creativity and storytelling and brand, which of course I appreciate greatly. But do you believe that being data-driven stifles creativity? Yes, no?
No,
Absolutely not.
No.
Why?
because the data tells you where to apply the creativity and what you should be vectoring the creativity on.
Excellent.
No question.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, where would your C-suite rank marketing's value to the business? You can up the ante a little bit if it's public, but where would they say you fit? JP, you are doing a...
I think we're on we're on a journey to being stellar, but there's a ways to go.
Okay.
I'd say we're about halfway there.
5. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they look at us as a work in process. You know, they're driving us to a certain point, and our group's part of that, so maybe like halfway there.
5.
Yeah, they're not satisfied yet.
Yeah, I think if you asked the question 2 years ago, it would be a very low score, 1 to 2. Now I think it's more 4 to 5.
Excellent. So, Gary, I believe I have 5 minutes left, and we're going to have the opportunity, if you put the house lights up, for anybody who would like to ask a question directly to the panelists, if you feel so inclined. I would just suggest if you do, just raise your hand, and I believe there'll be a couple of runners. And as you're contemplating your question, if you do decide to ask one, that research report I mentioned before, I'm happy to go give it to you regarding the ROI. Just send me a note, I guess, through LiveCube. I don't know how that works, but so I guess send me a little note, and I can give you the link, and you're more than happy to do it. Does anybody have any questions for the crew? Okay? No? Yes?
There's one up front here.
Lance?
Thank you for the presentation.
I'll repeat your question for the crowd.
Okay. I see a lot of conversation taking place on the ownership of the data, especially when wearable technology comes into play. So who actually owns it? Is it the user? Is it the customer? Is it the manufacturer of the device? You know, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have any insight on who's possibly going to win that debate and what that means for B2B marketing?
So I'm going to paraphrase the question. There's a lot of talk about data and data coming from various locations, sources.
Who owns the data?
Yes. So there's a lot of data coming in. Looks like there's an ocean for EMC. But that being said, who ultimately owns the data, i.e. enough to understand how it can help a B2B marketer? Thanks, Lance. Who owns the data?
We're looking at you.
You are looking at
I don't know. You seem like the
That's an hour
lifeguard.
subject.
You're like the lifeguard at EMC. So.
You know, I think that as users, they will see more of a benefit in giving permission, like in terms of PII, product usage, so they have to see that benefit, and then they will, ownership won't be so much of an issue for them. And so I think that case has to be made, and people will see more benefit. And you see that with Homeland Security. I mean, they're a huge, what you'd call a stage 5 predictive analytics competitor, you know, and they're just based on data, but people see the benefit of sharing data with them.
We'll talk about the Nike example.
Yeah, Nike's
Okay.
another customer. They come in, and you know, what will Nike be eventually? You know, will they be a healthcare provider, perhaps a software company, because they're embedding technology in all of their gear, all of their clothing that enables the capture of data. That data is information, and that information is valuable for a healthcare provider. It could be valuable for forecasting. So they're trying to decide, well, what is the Nike going to be of the future? That's an example. You can see it across the board in all industries. You know, GE is another example.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think Gary's given me the high sign. Hopefully you appreciated the perspective and points of view. Have a great balance of your sessions. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Good job, man.
Thank you.